What's up guys, it's Mark from SoCal Park Secrets. Today's video is going to be a little different. The last time I tried uploading a video, it didn't want to upload and I kept going through all these problems with it. So I thought this way would be a little easier. So today's video is going to be all about the Haunted Mansion. So let us begin. So the Haunted Mansion is one of the most beloved attractions at the Disneyland park. However, it had actually opened 14 years after the opening day of Disney. Now, the building there, however, was teasing guests for 4 years prior to the attraction actually being opened at Disneyland Park. And that is because they were trying to figure out what exactly they wanted to do. At first they said they're going to make it a walkthrough haunted house, and then they had made it, or wanted to make it a water ride, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean. And when they finally decided, hey, you know what, let's make it totally different, they decided, okay, we'll do it this way. And that is why they do the Doom Buggies. The initial design of the Haunted Mansion was inspired by the Evergreen House in Baltimore, Maryland, and the Winchester House in San Jose, California. Now, for those of you who do not know what the Winchester House is, the Winchester House was a house where, according to a legend and myth, or whatever you want to call it, it was built by a family, and they never stopped building in that house. They had built like a bunch of stuff that most houses you don't see. And it is probably the biggest house in California. It has doorways that lead to nowhere, staircases that lead to nowhere, just to confuse ghosts and spirits that were inside the park, inside the house, that were supposedly trying to, I guess, kill them or whatever they want to do. They just want to do that, so they had stopped. And according to the legend, there was a worker that decided he was sick of always building and he couldn't take it anymore. So what he did is he had actually cemented himself behind a brick wall. That way he was safe and he could, I guess, die peacefully by himself. And they actually add that scene in the Haunted Mansion during the graveyard scene right before you get to the hitchhiking ghosts. So make sure you guys watch out for that. The original design for the house was to make it dreary and creepy, but Walt didn't want it distracting from the beauty of the rest of Disneyland. He famously said, "We'll take care of the outside and let the ghosts take care of the inside." Which that means is he wanted the outside to look nice like the rest of the Disneyland park, and then on the outside, or on the inside, make it look really, really creepy and make it look like it's been abandoned for years. When it had opened August 9th, which was 6 years after it was built, 11 years after the initial designs were drawn, it finally opened and everybody could go on and experience what Walt said about the ghost taking care of the inside, and it actually was a very success. Like I was telling you in the beginning of the story, there's been a lot of different brides in there in the attic. And the most recent one, which actually started in 2006, her story is she's a gold digger and she just wants to get a bunch of money. So every time she got married, she'd chop off the guy's head and take all their money, which is really creepy. I mean, who'd want to marry a girl after you find out that she's been married about 10 times and each one had their head chopped off? I know for sure I wouldn't want to do that. And also, back to the original one, there was a ghost in there called the Hatbox Ghost, which some of you guys might know because it is back inside the Disneyland park again. Originally, it was supposed to be there, and it would move his head every time the original attic ghost, every time her heart beat. But it was only in the ride for a whole 2 days, and that is because everybody kept saying, oh, you could still see his head, and it wasn't very good. So now they brought it back, and it's a lot better, and it actually looks really, really creepy now. Continuing on, Madame Leota, for those of you who don't know who that is the lady inside the crystal ball that is channeling the ghosts. From there, The crystal ball actually didn't start floating in the air until 2006, Before that, it just sat on the table in front and had her voice in it. The person that does her voice is Eleanor Otley, who voices Lady Trauma in Cinderella and does the voice of Maleficent in the original Sleeping Beauty movie cartoon. And if you guys ever noticed, there is no floor between you and Madame Leota. It is just that rail, and it kind of goes around. They call it a donut, and her being the center of the donut. Continuing on, the next scene in that is the ballroom scene, and the ballroom scene is actually really cool. If you guys have ever noticed, you guys know that there's that glass right in front of you that is kind of projecting the ghosts inside the ballroom. Now, if you guys ever noticed, there is a big spider web over by the glass. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that. That is actually because somebody around the time, maybe I think it was like around 4 years after the park has opened, or the ride had opened, they had brought a BB gun and actually shot a hole through it. Now, instead of replacing the glass, they decided, let's make it even creepier and put a spider web there to kind of cover it up. And they put a big old spider web there and a giant spider in the center of it, just to cover it up, because you guys know the way that building is, it would have been really, really hard to fix the glass. They would have to take the whole roof off, put the glass down, and it would have actually closed the ride for quite a bit of time. And nope, you guys all know nobody wanted that. Now, in the ride, there's only 2 actual living creatures. That is the caretaker and the dog in the ghost scene. The grinning ghost heads, those singing ghost heads in the park, one of them, there's a rumor saying that it was supposed to be Walt Disney. It is actually not Walt Disney. The one that everyone says is Walt Disney, his name is Thurl Ravencroft. He actually did the voice of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, from, of course you guys all know, from the movie The Grinch. He also is the voice of Tony the Tiger, so yes, he's the one that says, "They're great." Don't know how we can change his voice so much, but that's actually kind of cool. And he is also Fritz the parrot from the Tiki Room. So, another cool fact about the Haunted Mansion is, it was actually probably, in my opinion, this isn't a true fact, this is my opinion, I actually think it's probably one of the least expensive parts of the ride. It would only cost $7 million to make. I'm not sure about everything else, that's what I'm saying. I think it might be one of the cheapest, but I'm actually not sure about that, so don't hold me to that. Continuing on, once again, for those of you who do not know, if you guys know, in the beginning of the ride, they say they have 999 ghosts, but there's always room for one more. That is technically not true anymore. A few years back, they had actually had an auction on eBay to be the 1,000th ghost inside the Haunted Mansion. The winning bid was over $34,000 just to be the 1,000th ghost. So what that guy did, sorry guys, I completely forgot his name, but he had actually got his own tombstone inside the ride. He got to go to the park in the middle of the night, be the first to ride it. They pointed out exactly where his tombstone was, and he got a pretty special treatment there. So that's actually kind of cool. And the very last thing I'm going to talk about is the elevator scene. So that elevator scene, what the original idea behind that was, they didn't just want to make an elevator go underground, they wanted a cool way to make it look more creepy. So what they decided to do, they wanted a quick, easy way to get you underground, so they decided to make this stretching room. Now the stretching room is actually really cool, because what it does, it gets you underground quick. And for those of you who do not know, if you guys have ever been on the little railroad behind the Haunted Mansion, that railroad, when you go behind the Haunted Mansion, there's this green building underneath that you can kind of see, that you kind of go over. That is actually all part of the Haunted Mansion. And it was to kind of make more room for the ride. And that was all part of the plan. So it's kind of hidden in the back, and the only way you can see it is actually from the railroad. So the last two things are back to the original part of the ride. One being the original bride. So the original bride was married to a pirate. Although she had no idea that he was a pirate, one day he was out on his trip, and she had decided to look into the attic. And when she did, she found a bunch of treasure chests. And what happened was he got back from his trip, they got into a big fight, and he had thrown her out of the attic window. And then he felt really, really bad about it, and decided to hang himself into the elevator. So you could actually see him up there. He's the one that's hanging there when the lights go out, and he says, "Of course, there's always my way." And so it's a really cool thing. The second original part of the ride that they have gotten rid of was the scene where there is the armor. Originally, the armor was actually somebody dressed up into an armor suit, and would actually scare the guests. And that didn't last very long, because apparently he kept hitting people. He scared the shit out of people and having them punch him in the face. And Walt did not want that. He wanted the park to be happy and be like it originally was. So that is when they decided, you know what, let's just go to animatronics like the rest of the ride. And ever since that, it has been animatronic now. And that hallway scene, of course, you guys all know how they do that. If you guys have ever seen one of those mirrors that they have back and forth, so it makes it look like the same thing over and over and over again, that is how they do that hallway scene. And that is about all I have for you guys here today. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm still going to do my videos from the park, but they're all going to be on the Facebook page. So be sure to go like us on Facebook. It is facebook.com/SoCal Park Secrets. I will see you guys next time.